What is up, everybody? Tanner back with another video. I made a lot of changes to my survival kit loadout, so I want to go over those changes. I think I made this kit a much better kit, so I want to go over everything and show you guys what I changed and also tell you guys what I kept the same. But for the most part, some of this stuff is pretty similar. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So one thing that I revised and improved on is my wilderness first aid kit. So working as a firefighter and EMT, I've definitely began to enjoy the first aid side of things. I think it's more fun, and also it's, in my opinion, better to be prepared than not be prepared. So I do carry a trauma bandage, a couple gauze pads, and a couple of blister kits. So pretty much most of the major things that can happen in the wilderness are going to be covered with this kit. So obviously I'm carrying a knife, I'm carrying an axe. So I want to be careful and make sure I have stuff for a trauma scenario. And I also have a couple of just rolled gauze pads right here. Another major thing is just some dermatone. This is just sunscreen. The reason I like this, because it's like a chapstick style, is because if it is wintertime and really cold, it just goes on and stays on a little bit better. So that's one little trick I learned from Polar Expedition. I did do some hydration tablets. That's probably one of the #1 killers in the wilderness, and it does have some caffeine in it too, because why not? I got some super glue in case I get a little minor cut. I have a little pair of Swiss Army knife with tweezers, because the tweezers are important for splinters or something like that. Nothing too crazy. Obviously, you're not going to save the world when you're out there, but it also, if someone does get a cut, it's pretty easily to take care of them with this kit right there. All of that I just spoke about goes right in this front pouch, so everything is going to fit in there. And I do want to mention I do carry a tourniquet as well. The reason I don't have it listed out right here is because I carry it on me. That's a whole different video. That is, this doesn't include everything that I have on myself at all times. There is a few other things, odd and ends, that I will be carrying with me that is not gonna be in this loadout, which I'll actually show it in the end of this video. But anyways, let's move on. Moving on to this left pocket right here. I have a cup in there right now, and then I have the bottle that rests in that cup right here. I also am going to carry a Silky Gomboy saw right there. So these things are definitely probably the best wilderness saws that you can think of. They're a little bit more brittle than the other saws, but they cut a lot better than the other saws in the market. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about my shelter. So this is one thing that did not change. My shelter is still my bivvy setup, so I love my bivvy. I'll pop up a picture on the screen right here what this bivvy looks like, but it is just, in my opinion, the best all-around shelter, because it is a 4-season shelter that packs down similar to what a 1-season shelter would pack down to. Totally waterproof. It is pretty bomb-proof, and quite honestly, I just think it is the best survival shelter slash even bushcraft shelter, because if I'm making a shelter, I want to carry something that's small and light, but this is a worst case scenario, and I don't have to set anything up. It's just right there ready for me. So I love this. I've used it camping many times. I'll never probably change that out because I'm very pro for that. Plus, I just think it's pretty cozy to get wrapped up in that. I do have a 3x3 schmog right here, and here is actually my Swagman roll, and I believe I have some underwear, some socks, and base layer bottoms in there, so just extra clothes if I need it. That's one thing that I don't think I had in my last video, is some extra spare items. Obviously, when you get to camp at night or when you're done, you might want to change out your socks, or if your feet are all wet, and that's a good thing to do so you avoid getting trench foot or anything like that, which I've definitely had before. So avoid that by packing some extra things in here. And I have this all in a Sea to Summit dry vent, event stuff sack, so it's waterproof, which I don't have to worry about when it rains out there. You can use a trash bag, but the reason I like this is because you can cinch it down. It's pretty nice. Not necessarily necessary, but I really do like it, and I will probably use it for forever. Moving on, I don't think I mentioned the pack yet, but I'm carrying the Pathfinder Scout Pack. This is my go-to pack, because for bushcraft and bushwhacking through the forest, this thing is bomb-proof, where I've used other packs before, and obviously they're not gonna hold up like this. All right, so moving on up here. So right here, as you can see, these are my electronics. All of these electronics are going to be what fits inside of this brain of the pack. So I've got a headlamp as well as a flashlight. This is the Pathfinder headlamp, very bright and great headlamp. So anyways, a lot of different settings on there, very nice headlamp. Then moving on, I've got the O-Light. This is another one that a buddy of mine gave me, and I love this thing so much. Sometimes it's nice to have both. I can hang this up anywhere. I can put it on a hat, doesn't really matter. So I carry both of those. And then I do have a little charging block, which I didn't have with me before, but I will say it's, if I'm backpacking, depending on where I'm going, there's a lot of times where if I'm staying in a hotel before, or if I'm doing a trip before, or staying in my car even, it's nice to have a block so I can charge these things up, because I used to not carry one, but then I'm relying on everything already being charged. So I got a little iPhone cable, and then my battery bank is I forget what brand this is, I got it as a gift, but it's a 4 Patriots 8,000 milliamp battery pack that is solar powered as well as rechargeable. It's really cool. It has all the different outputs you might need. It also has a flashlight on it, which is kind of unique, I think. Hold on, let me see if I can turn it on. It's actually a very bright flashlight. Really cool little item. I enjoy having it. So the last two things that are in the brain of my pack is gonna be this stocking cap. I just think summertime, wintertime doesn't matter. It's nice to have a stocking cap. So it's just a 50% wool, 50% nylon stocking cap, nothing too exciting. Again, this is the same compass that I had in my last setup. It's just the Suunto MC2. At the Pathfinder Survival School, that is what everybody uses. That's what they teach on. It is, in my opinion, I don't have a ton of experience with other compasses, but that is the best all-round compass from anything I've ever used. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I absolutely love that thing. It's very reliable as well. So this actually doesn't get put into the brain of the pack. It gets put underneath it. So this is just the rain jacket. I have it just folded into its hood right here. So it gets stored just like that, and it actually fits perfectly in there. I'm not sure if I had a rain jacket in my last video, which obviously I think that may have been a mistake, but you gotta have a rain jacket. Maybe I had a tarp, I don't remember, or a poncho. But anyways, oh, the last thing that's in the brain is just my toothpaste and toothbrush, because you gotta brush your teeth when you're out there morning and night. Don't be one of those people who brushes one time a day. I know probably half of you watching are those people, but it definitely is. I'm gonna cut that out. So you have my toothbrush in here. That's very important to brush both in the morning and at night. That's what my dentist says. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into the other contents of my pack. Pretty much everything from right here all the way, all of this stuff fits within this cook pot. So this is one of the biggest changes that I made. The past item that I had was a larger bush pot, which I like better, but the fact that I can store all of that stuff in here and get it outside of everything else makes it a huge benefit to me. Literally everything from the fuel to the stove set to the lighters to the char kit, everything can fit in here perfectly and keeps everything stored. So it also keeps it waterproof or water resistant. So there's a lot of benefits behind that, in my opinion. Not that any of this stuff really needs to be waterproof, but it's nice to have all of that be able to store in here, and it's a little bit smaller and flatter, so it doesn't take up too much space in there. And I've used this for a long time and I do really like it. It's just some sort of MSR pot system that they created. And then, so talking about the things that get stored in here, we have a ferro rod. Like I said, this is a survival kit. I like to practice different fire techniques. My favorite being the ferro rod, because it's pretty easy to start a fire with a ferro rod, and it's practically reusable. So the other thing I have is a little char tin with a flint and steel kit. So that's just more for fun and more for starting fires. That makes me feel more primitive. I enjoy practicing that, as I'm sure you guys do. One thing I do want to mention is I do carry a magnifying lens in my hat. So I have one of those Wazoo Gear hats that actually, it has pockets inside of it, which is really cool. So I made a video on the different things that I carry within my hat, but if you guys are interested, just check that out. But it is pretty amazing how many things you can store in there. So I have a fishing kit in there, I have a lighter, I have a magnifying glass, I've got a lot of stuff in there. It's kind of cool. So anyways, I have one lighter, and then this is just my stove lighter. Stove lighter rests inside of this. And then we do have some Pathfinder mini infernos, which makes fire starting in the rain a heck of a lot easier. When I am out there in camping or bushcrafting or doing a little survival trip, obviously I'm gonna probably try to make a fire. That's one thing that's different, is I didn't have a stove in the last kit, but I do want to make this kit able to be kind of a backpacking kit as well. I want it to be able to do both. Plus, in a real survival situation, if I need to boil water or something, I'm not going to probably want to go through the hassle of making a fire. So if I am in a true survival situation, I obviously wouldn't want to have to gather wood and start a fire. So having a stove and some fuel to be able to boil water a few times is pretty convenient, and quite honestly, I think it's a good kit. That doesn't mean I can't start a fire. It's just a little convenience factor, I guess. I do carry some Chinese stainless steel utensils here that they can mimic the Boy Scout sets. Just nice to have some utensils. I can use sticks too, but I can also use those. So anyways, so that's everything that fits inside of here. Now moving on to what's on top of this in the pack. So in the pack, I have these cool little tin cans. So this is actually, I think, 5 or 6 tin cans. and this is where my food is gonna go. So in the last pack, because the last pack was designed for more day to 1 to 2 day trips, this pack is a little bit more for 2 to 3 day, 4 day trips, and I have a lot more space for food. So I made my other pack, I was gonna just rough it and plan on catching food or something, but this pack actually has a few tins where I will be putting food for the trip. So as you can see, there's a good amount of these. There's, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 tins, and these actually fit a lot more food than you'd even realize. So they're empty right now, but you could fill these up with some lard. You can put rice in there. You can put a lot of the staple ingredients, and you can actually turn that into a lot of meals. That's what we did up in northern Alaska on a mountaineering expeditions. We carried pretty much all just simple ingredient food, or simple ingredients in cans like this, and then we actually kind of cooked everything from scratch. So it was pretty cool, and you can do it. And in my opinion, it's just a little bit more convenient to have some more storage for food. So I will say that's part of the reason my pack is as big as it is. But as you can see, there's 5 here. If I'm going out on a shorter trip, I can take 3 of these out and leave 2 of them in there. So you can definitely manipulate this pack the way you want it and change it out depending on what you're going to be doing. Again, another thing about clothes real quick is there's not a lot of winter clothes in here because I'm planning on wearing those on my body when I'm going out. If I have a puffy jacket or something, I'll strap it to the back right there. I do have my Swagman roll, which is a wintertime outer layer because it has a hood on it and you can strap it and wear it like a coat. I do have some winter clothes, but this kit isn't necessarily designed for wintertime camping or wintertime bushcraft / survival. So let's move forward from that. Besides this, that goes into the top of my pack, right next to this. And then I have 2 leather gloves that they just rest in there because it's kind of nice to have. My last video, I just had 1 leather glove. I decided to have 2 because I don't really know why. I still am a fan of having just 1 leather glove because I find myself not really ever needing to, but I have my Grail water filter because that filters out chemicals. And if I'm around here, I kind of worry about that more. If I'm in the middle of the wilderness, I don't necessarily love the Grails because they don't last quite as long as some of the other filters. But besides that, if you're willing to buy more filters and spend the money, then it is probably the easiest and, in my opinion, one of the best ways to filter your water. It just doesn't last as long as the Sawyer Minis. But anyways, it is an awesome water filter. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. And then right here is actually a new hatchet that I just got, and I'm really excited to use it. So I had a really crappy old hatchet that I think was probably from a hardware store, but this is an actual really nice hardened Adler axe or hatchet. I'm excited to use that and get it out there, but I think this thing will be a great addition to the kit. Let me go ahead and put this thing back. All right, and last but not least, this just straps into the front of my pack on the harness part, and this is my Garmin InReach. If I'm actually on a trip, I always bring that with me because it doesn't matter where I am, that thing can hit a satellite and message and SOS signal to my loved ones as well as emergency personnel. And the amount of people who have saved their lives because they've had one of those things is pretty astonishing. So it's definitely worth it. It can be expensive. I pay a monthly subscription for that. Obviously, when I'm not using it, it gets paused, but it is an awesome item. I've brought it with me to Alaska, to Canada, to northern Minnesota, to pretty much everywhere, Colorado, all these different areas where I've been out into the deep wilderness, Washington State. So anyways, it's been with me a lot of places. That thing is absolutely awesome. Every time I go up canoeing in Canada, it comes with me. It's just a good thing to have in a worst case scenario. I know you shouldn't plan on using that, but it's a worst case scenario. It's better to have one and not need it than to need it and not have it. The last thing I didn't mention, this just rests on the top, is some bank line. This is one thing that I don't have a great spot for. I would like to maybe wind this up and in a little bit of a smaller package so it doesn't have to just be this giant thing. So anyways, that is everything. I do have a torso length closed cell foam pad thermarest right there that I just keep stored on the bottom. I like the torso length pads because it's really easy to put something underneath your legs and my legs don't get super cold. Worst case scenario, you just bundle up like a ball and you're gonna be warmer anyways, but it's just a lot smaller, packs down smaller. It's obviously a little lighter. I'm not really going for weight here, but it is lighter if that's important to you. And overall, I think the closed cell pads are really convenient, easy to set up. They're bulletproof. You can't really mess it up, so I really like them. and they're also really cheap, and sometimes I can be pretty cheap. Anyways, that is everything. Like I said, I have other things that I'm gonna be carrying in my pockets, but besides that, this is everything that fits in that pocket, and I'll show you guys that on the screen right here. Alrighty guys, so this is the pack fully loaded out. As you can see on this left side on the screen, I've got my grail, as well as my hatchet right there. And then the pad, I created a little system that just goes underneath there. Obviously, I don't like the blow up pads because they're just so brittle and for some of the things I do, so I stick with that. And then on this other side, I've got the silky saw, as well as my cup and bottle set that just goes towards my bivy setup. So all in all, it's definitely a fully packed backpack. There's not a whole lot of space to add anything else in there, but I will say that counts for food, that counts for water, it counts for pretty much everything I need. The only thing that I would like to add possibly someday is a shovel, which I have just got a new shovel that I really like, but I do not have space in there right now. I'll have to figure that out eventually, but it's also not set up completely for winter time. There's not a ton of space for really cold weather gear or anything like that, but for spring and definitely summer, this is plenty. So anyways, that is the bag setup. Let me know what you guys think below, and please do subscribe and comment. It helps out my channel quite a bit. I've got a lot of fun trips coming up this year that I hope to film. So this is just an overall example of what this pack looks like fully loaded. It is definitely full, but like I said, it's got space for the food, it's got space for water, it's got space for anything you might need, and there's some extra space in there for some other odds and ends that I might feel like adding in. Please do give me some suggestions in the comments below. Let me know what you guys carry in your packs that's a little different than mine. If there's any gear here that you don't like or you do like, let me know why, and I'm always curious to hear your guys' responses. But anyways, thank you guys very much, and I will see you guys in the next video. So Tanner, peace out.